Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at AquarianRadio.com. And I'm your host, Janet Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, and my other co-host, Karen Christine Patrick. And today we're going to do a roundtable discussion with Michael Lee Hill. And let's see, next, Sasha wants to say something, and then Karen.
Yeah, it's at this time, the fractals within us of everything in the universe is coming to a head under Aquarius. Certain alignment of our consciousness is occurring, and many people feel stimulated by the archetypes of Marcia or ENKI and Rail and so forth. And it seems like in every one of these times these fractals come up, there's a test. And for one of the most interesting is the test of Abraham. Abraham was a guy who Yahweh, in other words, Enlil said, listen, Abe, you've got to put your wife Hagar and your son, the prince Ishmael, out in the desert. You guys will probably do it. Then later on, he did. Okay, well, you're still my man. Now, will you kill your next son, Isaac? Yeah, boss, I'll do it, says Abraham. We've been living in the matrix of Yahweh and Abraham since that day. But now things are changing, because we have a person among us who really has felt the ENKI energy, who felt ENKI embodying him at this time and place, who gave the right answer. And the right answer when you're told to let your friend die, kill your kid, no. And I want you to listen up to Michael, because he's a real thing.
And before we bring on Michael, we're going to let the audience be teased a little bit longer while Karen Christine Patrick tells them a little bit about Michael, our show today.
Okay, this is an interview with Michael Lee Hill with host Janet, Sasha, and me, Karen, and it's about an AR-boarded group, heretofore clandestine, but now we're starting to come out. AR Bordon had a group of people meditate to try and affect certain events. Michael Lee Hill and Karen Christine Patrick come out as members of this group. AR Bordon was an insider with knowledge about our holographic universe, or what he called the ideomaterial universe. He was a renegade physicist, along with other anonymous scientists who experimented in the areas of fringe science. Later, AR gathers a group of psi-talented people in order to begin to share information that had been clandestine. Michael Lee Hill, who's been with us on Aquarian Radio before, has come forward, along with regular co-host Karen Christine Patrick, that's me, to tell about the set of experiments with the intent of encouraging people that high spiritual and mental abilities can affect the entire planet for the positive. So that's really a cool introduction. It was actually written by Sasha. Thank you for those great words, and that sets it up pretty well.
Oh, thank you. And Michael Lee Hill, welcome to the panel today.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be talking with all of you, and it's going to be a great show.
It always is whenever you're here.
So
go ahead.
What was your test debate? How did you get to it?
Yeah, do you want to fill us in a little bit about what transpired a few weeks ago?
Oh, boy, jump right into the deep end, huh?
Well, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Somebody asks a question, doesn't really have to answer it.
Oh, right on. You know, it's such a I didn't know what was even happening until afterwards. And all I can tell people is I had read in the past the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. But in the past, I thought, well, that's kind of a strange bed of knowledge, and kind of just put it in the back of my brain. What I just went through in last month on the solstice, June 20th, was, some people have called it the Halls of Amenti, which is, it's being brought before a galactic council. By the way, I've come to understand I was brought before the Link. That's what we're talking about, and it is galactic. The Link from, the Linkage Institute, the meeting where A.R. Bordon would meet these extraterrestrial beings. And if you recall, he was lobbying to bring a bigger number of people to the table. And truly what this all does is, if you look into the Wingmakers, they have an terminology. They call it the sovereign integral. And that's someone who has learned to stand in their own sovereignty and to not give your power away to any outside source. And I guess really what happens is higher dimensional levels of spirit do make sure you're a clean vessel before you're allowed to travel into the higher dimensions. And that's what happened last month, and it almost killed me. Janet and Sasha, you know better than anyone because you happened to call me right when I got home, and, it was not easy what I went through. But the end is, look into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and what you'll find out is once he passed this test, and I heard the same initiation was King Solomon, and after King Solomon had passed the test, the Dark Ones had to do his bidding, and he controlled them, and they built his temple, as the story goes. What it is, it's almost like this event where the Dark Age turns into the Light Age because one human, and it only takes one, right? Because we are all one, and if one can do it, all of us can do it, and that path it's carved into the mass consciousness for anyone who wants to take the path now of sovereignty and not following the crowd up the crooked stairs, because what you find out is that desire to form in, join the mass consciousness, it's really controlled with a lot of mind programming, and it's not of the light, it's of the dark side. And their whole deal is to try to get someone to enter that circle because truly it's of your own free will. And when I experienced this, it's the same thing when I met the Anunnaki back in 2008. If you guys recall, I said once I met Marduk in the genie bottle, afterwards they were going to a ritual. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I went with them to that ritual, there was a large circle that was only one way and one out, and it was a magic circle, if you know what I mean, in quotes. And really the idea is that if you enter the circle of your own free will, you've given your power and energy over to some outside source for some type of illusionary spiritual gifts or whatever, But truly, you've given yourself over to the dark side. And I didn't know any of this back in 2008, but when they took me to that circle, something screamed in my head, do not enter the circle. You will not make it out, And but the deal is, that's only getting past the seven lords of darkness, as they're called in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I call them bad cop, right?
Right.
That, the way to beat the bad cop side is that you do not succumb to their Illuminati, New World Order mind programming to enter the circle, because there is a lot of, programming going on there. But to gain the support of the seven lords of light, or Team Good Cop, one has to bring compassion to the table. One has to bring love. Back in 2008, I passed the dark side. I did not enter the circle. I resisted their mind programming, but I didn't bring any love or compassion to the table. So I didn't gain control of the Stargate at that time. But this just happened again, and I passed both tests, and that was last month. It's interesting because now I experienced it at a Native American Indian Sundance, which is totally different than the pagan festival. It's almost like this event is repackaged for the individual audience that it's being catered to. Like I heard the exact same experience is contained in the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dead, and pretty much how at these transitional phases that, you know, initiates are brought before this council, and you got to be able to withstand the test, and they're very, very, they don't play nice, you know. So that's what happened, and I can tell you that after it, I was officially recognized by Spirit and the Native American Indian tribes as grandfather, which now I find out means Ea, which, hello, right? Ding, ding, ding.
Right.
But
right.
And also I was given the Anunnaki have anointed me ENKI, which is not a name, it's a title. We can get into that, but that's what happened. They made, you know, I was made to witness things that was really horrifying to me of self-inflicted suffering, and that's when you talk to me, I couldn't even hardly talk about it because those images were so fresh in my mind. But after that, have you noticed the changes that's happening worldwide right now? You know, Britain succeeding from the EU was 2 days after that event.
Right. And
now Russia and France are following suit. The Vatican just announced, oh, by the way, we were wrong. You know, Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute and a whore. She was Jesus' first apostle. Well, that's a reversal, you know.
Wow.
Things are changing on all. I'll send you the link, and that was right from the Vatican. And then look at what's happening on the economic level of, you know, China just announcing that they went to a gold-backed currency that they will not accept U.S. dollars to or from it, and that's truly cutting off the head of the Illuminati, the banking family's Federal Reserve note, because now there's a lot of other countries that are now forming gold-backed currency, and they're not going to accept Federal Reserve notes because they know they're monopoly money, you know. So there is so many things that are massive changes that even happened because truly when you look in the Book of Thoth, once he got past the initiation, the veil of darkness fell away from him and was not able to interact with humanity anymore. And I truly know and believe in my heart that's what's happened. And these are just the first ripple effects of seeing the Illuminati, New World Order, oil and banking families being removed from the game board.
Well, I wanted to ask a couple questions of Sasha. Do you have a question?
No, it's just, I'm struck, Michael, that it's almost like you're an ambassador or a butterfly cell in the cocoon of a slumbering humanity, and your light is just awakening people. Way cool. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, I wanted to ask, E-A-R-T-H is earth, and ENKI means, I think, Lord of the Earth, because it's E-N is Lord, and Ki is Earth. So that means that if you are now Ea or ENKI, you are now Lord of the Earth. What does that mean to you?
And that means all of the dragon families, you know, all of this gold that they have. And I actually have been, because you guys know Dave Schmidt, and I've been brought into this world, and it was kind of interesting because these dragon families seem to be like squabbling teenagers arguing over whose gold it is and what the use of that gold is. And I can tell you, the Anunnaki said, guess what? It's your gold. And I can tell you the gold is to free mankind is what it's for. And there's a lot happening on that front as well. And it's absolutely to free all of humanity from this this economic system that's been installed to enslave humanity. It's what's happened.
Definitely.
And it's so the end of the Federal Reserve is an end to that system. And truly what's happening is we are now fully on the way to the next golden age, where mankind is going to become a galactic society and function at that level of society with access to a lot of cosmic races who have a lot we can learn from. And I'm really excited about what's going to be transpiring here in the very near future.
I certainly am, too, because I'm an emanation of Nimba, who's been totally written out of history, most for the most part, but following the Glenn Bogue, which I agree with Glenn Bogue's theory about who Nimba was. She was ENKI's wife, and ENKI was Jesus. And so now she's given equal, the apostle, I'm pointing out, apostles to the apostles, given equal dignity in feast. That's wonderful that they are waking up to that. That's part of the balancing of the yin and the yang, which is the symbol that ENKI and Nimba left for us, the yin-yang symbol, which is a symbol of the singularity within the light within the dark and the dark within the light. To move it in like a toroid, you see how everything goes through each other. The light goes within the dark and the dark goes within the light. So that's phenomenal. I also wanted to ask, and then I'll pass it on to Karen and then to Sasha, because I'm sure we have a bunch of questions and lots of things to talk about, that you said earlier that you were brought before the link. Can you elaborate a little bit, like who's in the link? How were they humans? Were they extraterrestrial? Were they human form? Was it here? Was it in space? What was going on?
They were in human form. Really what you see with the halls of Amente, when you look into it, it says at very specific times, and this gets deep, but, take in the account that most people now understand that we're living in a holographic reality that is, some people say it's all illusion. I tend to say, it's a very real illusion. And what you take out of it, how you respond is very real, and your emotional state while you're experiencing these things is very real. But I've never even thought of the question, well, what programs the holographic 3D physical reality that we experience? And what I found out was it's the halls of Amente is where that process actually happens. And what happens is 1 year of holographic perceived physical reality is compressed down into 4 days. Each day equals 3 months. And so they broke it down for me even to the point that 1 second equals 93.125 seconds of actual perceived physical 3D reality. So, for instance, if you're in the halls of Amente day 1 and you have 1 second of, let's just say, fear or doubt, you'll experience fear or doubt created through event strings in your physical reality for 93.125 seconds. So it's almost like they've taken the mass consciousness, plugged it into the super cosmic galactic supercomputer that is going to take the whole mass consciousness, the best of it and the ugliest of it, of where we are as a species right now, bring it down onto this earth. At the halls of Amente, they say that these higher dimensional beings come down to earth and share the exact same space-time with us in 3D. And it's not the same place every time. Like I said, one time this happened to me, and it was in New York. This time it happened to be Iowa. But during this time, higher dimensional beings, they're not existing in higher dimensions. They're right here on the 3D. And I was told by the chief that during this, you might even experience spirit touching you or grabbing your shoulder, and that is absolutely true, by the way. Something grabbed my foot in the tent, and I woke up and nothing was in the tent with me. That was a little freaky. But so during this experience is actually the creation of the next full year, because every day equals 3 months of perceived reality, and it's a 4-day event. So that's why, too, they tracked precessional cycles and equinoxes with such great care, because they knew day 1 was going to be what was going to unfold in the next summer, equinox period. And they knew what happened in day 3 would be happening in the fall. So in this, up until this point, every time mass consciousness has been plugged into this program to create the 3D physical perceived reality that we all experience, the Dark Lords or Team Bad Cop has been a part of the equation. Just like Toth, when he made it through this testing or whatever you want to call it. And same with King Solomon. It's the exact same thing. Now they are no longer part of the creation of physical reality. Isn't it amazing to even think of that? No more manipulation and control of humanity by the dark side is even allowed on a spiritual level now. That we have gained and earned the right to, as a species, because if I wouldn't have passed the test and I entered the circle, and I almost did, I was almost tricked into it, I would have been hanging from the tree. I would have been crucified. As Chief said, He goes, if you enter that ring, you're going to be laying in a fetal position, crying out for your mama with your thumb in your mouth. And he said, you're going to have the cleanest thumb of anyone in this whole place. He was speaking the truth to me, but I chose correctly, and what has happened now is if one person can do it, anyone can do it, and that pathway has been carved into the human mass consciousness. And if I hadn't, I would have probably died right there in the circle, and then you get reincarnated into the reincarnation pool. Now it's the reverse. If one person comes through, because we're all holographic, and I don't know if people even understand that terminology, because think of our reality. You think of like if you had a negative of a rose and you cut that negative in half. The top of the rose, you're going to have the top of the flower, and the bottom of the negative, you'd have the stem. That's not how a holographic negative works at all. If you cut a negative of a rose, a holographic rose, cut it in half, shine a light through the top, you get a full version of that rose. Shine it through the bottom, you get a full other perspective of the full rose. Now you can cut those in half. You can keep cutting it down, smaller and smaller and smaller. Every single part, if you can get a laser beam through it, you're going to get an actual whole rose from a different perspective of the original, which means every bit of it contains all of it. So within each human, we have the mass consciousness within ourselves on a cellular level. So once one makes it, it takes the whole mass consciousness into this next realm, and it only takes one that will end the old dark age. And it always happens at the Kali Yuga, where people look into what Kali Yugas are. They're very long time cycles of bringing humanity from dark ages into light ages, and this evolutionary cycle keeps going. So truly what I know is that truly now we are in the age of Aquarius, and the golden age that has been prophesied is going to be unfolding right in front of us over the next months.
Karen, question.
Hello. Wow. I feel like when we talk about these topics or particularly anything pertaining to A.R. Bordon, it's sort of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I mean, it's a lot to it. So I want to kind of review the A.R. Bordon component here. Can't possibly do the whole idea of it, but I could just talk about my own experience. My own experience with A.R. Bordon was a number of years ago. I think it was like about 2010. And what happened was he often writes articles for publications like UFO Digest and whatnot. I read an article, and I don't recall the exact title, but it just struck me so right on about who the beings are that we are encountering. And it was this imperative. We've really got to get this idea in our head about the extraterrestrials who are visiting us and what this is all about. And I was very excited about some things he said in the article. So there was this email address. I contacted them, and I was invited to join a online forum. Before we had Facebook, we had forums, and that was usually where different people with different common interests kind of gathered. And it was the Life Physics Group forum, which is now shut down. But as a result, I didn't know people's real names because we all had, fictitious names, but we all, avatar-type names. But we were discussing the Life Physics Group. And the Life Physics Group, I can't speak to it completely because I consider myself in the latter-day A.R. Bordon group. So we're the last sort of group that were involved with A.R. Bordon, particularly transitioning from the online forum to where we are today, several Facebook forums, and I left links in the description on Blog Talk so people can check out those forums and join them on Facebook. But basically it was like going into a nice hot tub with all your friends. I mean, it was comfortable. You weren't weird. Everyone was right where you were at, and the topics were this ideomaterial universe sets of topics based on a bunch of papers written anonymously, except for A.R. Bordon was kind of giving us that name anyway. Most of the other participants were anonymous, and only a couple of the people in the forum were part of these original groups. And I guess this was a renegade bunch of physicists who, you know, were coming to the conclusion that we do have a quantum hologram that we're living in. If you what Michael was talking about, how hologram, everything is a whole and a part, and everything is a fractal, you know, down to like when you cut open the seed of a tree, you see the actual pattern of that tree inside the seed is this fractal idea that goes from infinity to infinity that we learned in fractal math, which was all the rage when I was in college, and we're just beginning to learn about that, is the self-similarity in nature. As long as we also had been engaging, you know, the phi spiral and the golden mean and all these other aspects of nature and how it functioned. And A.R. Bordon, despite the fact some people have recently denied this, was connected to extraterrestrials. And he, you know, this is the LINKAGE Institute, I'll sort of define that. The LINK was a mixed group, meaning sometimes on Earth, sometimes elsewhere, sometimes off planet, who were basically trying to see which way blows the breeze with Earth at any given time. They're trying to see, as AR explained it in a basic kind of term, is that, you know, humanity really didn't yet have, we were, like if you go to Thanksgiving and you have the adult table and the kiddie table, we were still in the kiddie table in terms of our own destiny. We really had it become cohesive enough as a species, you know, to have a seat at the table where even our own destiny was decided. And I think that somewhat has to do with our origin from the Anunnaki sort of creating our race, more or less. And, you know, thinking of us as slaves, as products, as wage slaves as we are now, as, you know, clones that are self-replicating now and just there to do their bidding and do what they need us to do. And so, you know, this is what he said many, many times. It was time for humanity to, you know, realize who they are, that they're not just a human, right? We're actually got a lot of aspects to us, not just from the Anunnaki, but other races that have made up our genome. And we have a really wonderful destiny, you know, as a species, and that we could become part of, you know, what my ET guides call paradigm galactic, meaning having this awareness of what your paradigm is, your view of the cosmos, more or less, being at least, if not universal, definitely beginning to learn our neighborhood here, our solar system neighborhood and our galactic neighborhood. So, you know, these are the kinds of discussions that went on.
Something.
Sure.
Josh wants to interject.
One of the things that the Linkage Institute was dealing with in the minutes that AR reported was the incoming presence, which we're experiencing right now, of Sa'ami, the planet of the Anunnaki, Nibiru. And
yes.
So I would really like Michael to tell us the latest on that, because a lot of people were doing apocalypso dances about it, but the reality is that the Linkage did do something about it. Michael, what happened?
Well, there's a lot coming out about this right now because the accurate date that I was told was 2036 is the arrival date, but what I'm finding out, it sounds like it might be one of Sa'ami, or Nibiru as it's known, one of its moon satellites. But how all this unfolded was, this is actually probably a bigger part of what's happening in the near future than even Nibiru getting here, because it deals directly with an upcoming cataclysm on this planet that we need to face as a entire one voice. And I'll tell you what it is. You know that I did the film with David Sarita, From Here to Andromeda, and we had the senior scientist, Boyd Bushman from Lockheed Martin, in the film. Well, people can go and look. It's on YouTube. Go to part 4, or I think they've put it into 2 parts, which are 2 hours. So it'd be in part 2 if it's not separated totally, because there's 4 episodes. Anyhow, episode. Oh, that was strange sounding. In episode 4, Boyd Bushman, he's invited David into his office at Lockheed Martin, and out of the blue, he points up to this picture that's above him, and he says, this asteroid is coming in, and it's going to hit the Earth in 2036, and we know it, we're tracking it. And David says, wow, that's really, crazy. How bad is it going to be? He goes, well, it's going to be, it's not a good event at all, and he said, it's going to pass by the Earth, get caught in the Earth's gravity for, 3 orbits, and come back, and they know it's going to hit Siberia. And David asked him, well, how bad, do you know what the effect will be? He said, no, because we don't truly know the trajectory or impact speed as of yet. This was in 2008. And so now, fast forward, I know this is already in our documentary back in 2008. Now, because I've been brought into the inner circle of the spiritual leader in chief of the Sioux Indian tribes, which is the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, which is very important. We can get into this. Remember, I've tracked the Atlanteans, the mound builders, into East Lake, Ohio, right? And they intertwined into the Iroquois. Well, where did they go? What I found out is they became the Cherokee, and then later on they intertwined and became known as what's the Sioux, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. So now when you know the chief of the Sioux, it makes sense by what's going on. But he has released now to the world that Earth Spirit and the moon has told, there's Native American Indian prophecy that the moon has said it'll take the hit for us. And it'll make sure it's between the incoming asteroid and planet Earth. And the prophecy is that it'll crack the moon in half, and 3 huge segments from the moon is going to come down and strike the Earth, which is still going to be horrible. But what I told him, because this was, we were talking kind of behind the curtain, if you know what I mean, for real. At the Sundance, there was a curtain that no one went back, and after all the tests were passed, he took me behind the curtain and told me exactly who he is, what his spiritual role was, and what had happened, and everything. So we're talking, and the deal is, if nothing is done, that is the outcome, and it's not good for humanity. But I talked to him about the work you and I did, Karen, with AR back in 2012, and how we were tasked to lessen the severity of Hurricane Katrina and earthquake Charlotte that had caused a 20-foot tsunami on the left side of the United States. And, AR gave us these NSA tasking instructions and everything. He said, we know that you're not weathermen, but it's almost like we became their smartphones, They said, just read these. It's the most accurate data from all the weather satellites and everything of these storms. They're going to be kind of looking through your eyes at this data, and they will know what to do, and they are in total control over this physical reality is what I'm finding out. And sure enough, look into these things. Hurricane Sandy lost all of its power and was redirected right before it hit New York. And on the other side, this 20-foot wall tsunami all of a sudden just disappeared and it never even hit Hawaii. And they had taken all the people of Hawaii and made them go to higher ground and everything. And they were showing it live on TV, the arrival of, the tsunami. Well, you guys were there, right?
Yeah.
So I told the chief, which, chief is another word for king. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
He said it's absolutely, if nothing's done, this will be the outcome, but prayer can change anything and can change any outcome. And I told him, I said, if 7 of us got together and we stopped the hurricane and the tsunami, imagine when thousands of us find out what is happening. And what they said now is these Native American Indian Sundance, his own words were, it's changing into something even more incredible, and that is the moon dance, which is going to be with full disclosure and everything, and freeing mankind. And then instead of being what it is, the moon dance is going to be a 3-day event that's going to be happening worldwide. And during the day, you'll get to go to a conference and learn from world teachers who are here to share this information in a responsible way. But then at night, we all go and dance and give our love to the moon and show her that we love her. And during this, like Edgar Cayce said, there ain't no doubt about it that fasting, which is a part of the sun dance, they fast and don't eat anything for 4 days. That's not necessary is what you find out. Edgar Cayce said fasting absolutely is crucial because you restore your physical vessel on a cellular level. It's brand new after 4 days. If you just don't feed it and give it bacteria and whatnot, imagine all the disease, all of the bad stuff from GMOs, from them controlling our food sources, if it could be eradicated in 3 days by just not eating. Well, here's the kicker, that eating apples does not impede in that process whatsoever. You can eat as many apples as you want, red ones, green ones, mush them up, eat until you can't eat anymore, and drink as much water as you want through the whole process. At the end of the 3-day period, you're going to walk away with a brand new human body free of all disease. And that's what's going to be offered to mankind. Mankind's going to be educated on this asteroid that's coming in, and that it's no joke. I mean, I'm going to show people Boyd Bushman's testimony, senior scientist from Lockheed Martin. You know, at the least case, the Indians say the moon will take the hit for us. What I'm saying is we can change that outcome by coming together as humanity, and that's the plan for the very near future.
Sasha.
Oh, well, what we know, of course, is that we do have clandestine operations on the moon itself, and the personnel on the moon is in danger, too. And if we can have this day of concentrated prayer and attention on saving the moon, we act like a magnet for the higher energies that use our consciousness to change the manifestation. It's a matter of everything comes from thought anyhow. And so there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
If I understand you, that's what I could say. Yeah.
Yes. So imagine these huge, beautiful moon dances happening worldwide with joyous music that we're going to be dancing under the moonlight. And it's going to change the future. And think about, I think it's wonderful, too, with, you know, you were saying the balancing of the yin and yang, Janet, and, you know, the male and feminine energies. You know, we need to bring back feminine energies in a big way because we've went really male-dominated, which I think it's so important what the Vatican, the Catholic Church, just announced about Mary Magdalene, because it's a huge step in bringing back a balance to the male-feminine energies. And it'll be even growing more when we start giving our whole human mass consciousness, mental energy to the moon. Think about how much love and restoring of balance is going to be involved with that.
Well, the inner and outer masculine and feminine needs to be balanced. So, not only are we living in a patriarchal world, but if we don't balance our own inner masculine and feminine, every individual on the planet is out of balance. And that's what creates the inner and outer war within yourself and with parent others. So that's part of that whole, what I recognize with them finally balancing and recognizing the mother. They're recognizing Mother Mary. Mary Magdalene is the mother, and she is Nima, the mother. And Nima was actually the one that figured it out. Not only did she figure out how to create Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapiens, but she bore the first one in her own physical body because she would not put her other sisters in risk and any kind of danger.
She discovered the power of mitochondrial DNA, which our scientists are just now beginning to understand. She was the discoverer of that principle.
Right. I wanted to address, remember at the meeting notes in 2011, A.R. Bordon said that they moved the Earth out of harm's way in some kind of time travel out of Nibiru or some kind of energy from Nibiru coming through the inner solar system and then put us back in place. Would either you or Karen or both of you like to comment on that? That seems like an asteroid would be a piece of cake, compared to moving
I would
the
love,
whole
because,
planet out.
me and you, Karen, I don't think we've actually talked about it, so I'm really interested, because I got my own communication of what truly happened with, if you remember, AR said we're going to get the hell out of Dodge, but take Dodge with us. So I'm looking forward to talking about this with you, but please take it.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a very unusual experience. We had kind of a protocol. It was a bit scientific, is talking about the angles of the trajectory and whatnot. But I have to say, we worked on a common etheric space we called the platform, and we had pairs of two people working together. I'm not certain, I don't recall how many pairs that we had, but this protocol was kind of outlined.
3 pairs.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. It was outlined by A.R. Bordon how to do this, and we had specific things to say at specific times. But one of the things that I did is after we did the procedure, I stayed in meditation in that space often, I think every time. I had a profound experience during one of those times where I kind of saw a little miniature movie, and it was so strange. I saw this movie where there was like a giant blue line grid, but it wasn't like if you think of the holodeck of Star Trek, but it was a sphere-shaped one or even a oval-shaped one. And inside it was the Earth. And then I saw these tall gray shadows coming toward me, and they began to congeal they were walking toward me. They congealed into humanoid form, and they literally looked exactly like the posters and paintings that you see of the beings from India, the blue gods and goddesses from India. I mean, just identical. But they were alive. I mean, it wasn't like it was just a static picture. They were. And they were communicating with me in pictures. And they showed me a personal incident in my life. My father used to be a driving instructor, and he had a car that had 2 steering wheels. So, the instructor would sit on the right side, and the student would sit on the left side. And he could override the controls, so to speak, and take over the wheel if the person got themselves in trouble, couldn't parallel park or something. And when I was a little kid, my dad would let me pretend I was driving by doing the wheel, the extra wheel. And that was such a personal incident. It was shocked me, because you'd have to be me to even know that incident occurred. And what I felt when I learned that was, it's kind of like in this idea that AR says we have to take over our own destiny. It's as if they've been taking care of the cosmos for us and our destiny, and they're letting us sort of try taking over the wheel, so to speak. That's where we're moving into, where we're going to discover our capacity to influence our experience. And that was really profound, because then I got a sense of what it was that they were trying to get us to understand, and what it was that we were doing. It was just taking over the wheel for a few minutes. And by doing so, we suddenly understood our place in the universe so much clearer when we begin to take responsibility for our planet and for, its destiny, instead of just leaving that up to, right now controlling powers that are allowing the planet to be polluted, for instance. It was profound. And so that suddenly, I got a bunch of things came into my mind, where there have been many remote viewers talking about that we have 2 timelines. We have a positive timeline and a negative destructive timeline. But one of the markers of this positive timeline is that we become aware of extraterrestrials and extra-dimensionals. And in the other one, we're never told about that, or we never embrace that knowledge. And I think that's a key thing, is that once we know our brothers and sisters in space, our ancestors that are extraterrestrial, we'll understand who we are and what we're capable of. So I hope that covers what you wanted me to, Michael. But go ahead.
No, it's perfect. How I was told to understand this is, we asked for the change in trajectory, as you stated. But as you said, it was like the Anunnaki was like, oh, how cute, look at the little children trying to take a hold of the wheel. Obviously, they have technology that we can't even think of that helps these situations. For instance, Buzz Aldrin had released on the news that there are these monoliths, that there was a monolith on the moon of Mars, right? And he said, wait till people find out that this monolith is there. They're going to ask who put it there. He said God put it there. But A.R. Bordon released that those monoliths exist on all of the planets, and where ley lines cross, like nodes, is where these monoliths are, and they're truly to help with tectonic plate shiftment when Nibiru comes through. And he actually said they worked very well last time, but what was happening this time was a little different. They had never been used in this capacity. And what I was told was, everyone in the audience is probably familiar with what a Merkaba is. It's your energy field around the body. Some people call it the aura or whatever. And the idea is that the Merkaba is a spiritual light vehicle that once you spin your energy fields in a very specific way using meditation and visualization, that it ignites into your own vehicle of light. You've actually created a little miniature sun around yourself, and light is truly the only thing that's not bound by our laws of physics, so you get go anywhere in the universe pass. But everything has a Merkaba field, a dog, a chicken, us, a planet. So if you ignite a person's Merkaba field and it becomes an interdimensional travel vehicle, what happens when you ignite the Earth's Merkaba field? It takes the whole Earth out of the space-time continuum into the ether. They said, since you're out of this space-time, time doesn't even behave the same, that for 1/100th of a second in the ether would actually equal 36 years of physical perception here. And in that end of that 1/100th of a second, they put the Earth back through into a new timeline that Nibiru now isn't going to be catastrophic. But to us, we would have only missed 1/100th of a second. You understand what I'm saying? Like, no one would have been any of the wiser. It's just like the Philadelphia experiment, They made a synthetic Merkaba, an artificial Merkaba around that ship by putting magnetic fields around it, ripped it out of the space-time continuum. It reappeared in 1988, right? So the story goes. And then after a short while, it got boomeranged back to 1942, I believe it was, and it said some of the men were infused in the hull of the ship and whatnot. But it's almost the exact same thing of pulling Earth through to 2036 is the date, which is interesting with everything that's happening, right? And then we were put back through. We only experienced 1/100th of a second, and now we're in a new timeline starting with 2012. And maybe that's the whole Mandela effect thing, too, is all the things that happened that were part of the dark ending to this story now are changing to the positive timeline. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you relate that story when how Marduk revealed that the time has changed? It's the end of the Kali Yuga, the beginning of the Aquarian Age and the Sasha Yuga.
You're talking about from the 2008 meeting with him?
Yes, because people really need to hear that.
Yeah, well, he said once, at first they didn't know who I was, being Ia. And I guess we're all hidden from each other through the veil, and no one gets a free ride, no matter who you are. What I found out, by the way, was to even participate and become a viable initiate through the halls of Amente, you have to be totally of the human mass consciousness. So to help, when we incarnated, we had memory blocks that were installed that absolutely stopped any connection to our higher selves, so we were totally at the same level as any other human on this planet. And truly, that's how you, from what I understand, you earn the right to try to help humanity, is becoming human yourself in every way possible. Walk a mile in their moccasins, right? So they, at one point, because he found out I was the one that was in contact with the Lake Erie UFOs, and he said, we need to know what you know, and he used this device that looked like a wand with a purple diode, and I felt it stimulate my third eye, and that's when everything changed. He said, oh, my God, we've been waiting for you to surface. Don't know how it is that you're here right now. It's a miracle, but since you're here, we can have a council meeting if it's okay with you. I thought that was a real change of attitude, by the way, because before that it was pretty hostile. But at that point he said that there would be another celestial object visible in our skies, and that it wouldn't be debatable that it was a reality. He told me, at this time I had never heard of Zecharia Sitchin, but they had told me that, people would be guided to this Professor Zecharia Sitchin, and they would learn that that planet is inhabited and they're connected with Sumeria and Egypt and all this other stuff. So they asked us for our own opinions on what we thought this revealing of this reality to the mass consciousness was going to have on Earth's institutions. And afterwards, they pretty much there was a lot of people in that meeting, by the way, who just thought we weren't ready, that we were like children giving children matches and whatnot, and that we weren't going to rise to the occasion. But that's pretty much it. At the end of it, they all agreed that mankind had earned the right to be treated as equals, and that this reality of who the Anunnaki are and how they're intertwined with our history would start to be revealed. And I asked him when, and he said obviously before 2012. And I actually do think, I got some problems with the show Ancient Aliens, but everything is twisted, both light and dark. But the truth of the matter is, it has really educated humanity, because as we've said, in 2008, there wasn't a whole lot of information even available out there, and the word Anunnaki was not a part of the mass consciousness whatsoever, and now it is. Most people have seen at least one show of the Anunnaki and have heard about Ancient Aliens, and heard about the Anunnaki. So I do believe in 2009 they were absolutely right that they did begin to prepare humanity for this higher reality. But they told me that their whole succession of Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, about whether Marduk is truly regretting what he did and intends to make amends, or is he just confused? And just what brought about this momentous change, leaving the matrix behind and ascending this planet and its people?
I think he never liked the role anyhow. I mean, he was doing us a service by reflecting back a negative polarity, because they understand that thoughts have an electromagnetic reality, energy, and energy can't be created or destroyed. It needs to be transmuted, into its higher octave, so to speak. So how do you transmute a negative thought form? Well, you live it. It comes up in your reality for you to choose love over fear. Then you transmute those energies and you're free and done of it then. But if you don't, then the same experiences keep manifesting. Different people, but it's the same experience. And you keep saying, why does the same crap keep happening to me? It's because those energies have not been transmuted. So on purpose, they decided to implement an experiment to help mankind burn through its shadow work quicker, because they had realized that, because even in the Sumerian word, Sasha, that it was Eden, that where mankind was brought into. And it said truly it was an Edenic state, that there was no homeless, no starvation. We were well taken care of. We were more like pampered pets. I know a lot of people put it into slave labor, which it absolutely, mankind was created to help in the toil and labor. But back then in Eden, we were well taken care of. But because of this, the elders, the Pleiadians, when ENKI went to his mother's side, which I found out is the Blue Avians, the Pleiadians now, I didn't know that before, they said, well, if we save humanity from this flood, which became Noah's flood myth, are they going to evolve fast enough by the end of this cycle, which was 2012, right? And the answer was no, because we were in Eden. We had no catalyst for change because everything was taken care of for us, and they decided to help humanity evolve faster. they would kick us out of Eden, so to speak, and make us experience our own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, unbiasedly. If you go dark, you experience your dark thought forms in an accelerated fashion. And their hopes were that we would get through our collective shadow work. Look into the shadow self. If anyone is unfamiliar, it's a Freud term. One of the Native American Indian grandmothers said the shadow self is where we got ouchies along the way. It could be things that even happened as a child where you had an adult respond to you in a very negative way. And I heard one of the Anunnaki just told me this was beautiful. They said it's kind of like a child who, there's a plate of cookies and this little girl goes to take a cookie and she goes, "Mom, could I have one?" And the mother says, "Sure you can." And the mother goes into the bathroom and the girl decides, "I'm going to play and I'm going to take that whole plate of cookies and I'm going to act like I'm going to eat them all." And when the mother comes out, she's like, "What are you doing with that plate, you greedy little girl?" How there's other people that want those cookies, and it hurts the little child, and that gets stuck down into the deep unconscious. And any time from that point forward in her life that someone tells her that she's greedy or something that triggers that emotional state, those thought forms need to be transmuted big time. And we all have our own personal baggage that's stuck down into our shadow self. And we have shadow work that needs to be done on a collective level. So imagine Anunnaki technology that made us experience our own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, which is interesting because, Karen, with the Wingmakers, the whole idea, and I heard that this technology was used on the team, and I'd like to get into this, that is intelligence acceleration technology from the Anunnaki was implemented on the team. And I think it was a new advanced version that's already been implemented on all of humanity in the past, but we just got a new version of it on a personal level. But if that's the case, it does seem like it worked because, matter of fact, when I met them, they said, we can't even understand how much it worked because we're part of it. He told me, I'm talking about one of the Anunnaki that I met in 2008. He said, we experience time differently than you do as a human, and that the only way you can understand is say that we were doing an experiment with, say, chimpanzees, some type of life form that was right on the verge of gaining self-awareness and consciousness, and that we as humans were trying to do some type of experiment that would raise its awareness. But we had a 2-week vacation coming up. Well, to them, an Anunnaki 2-week vacation is like 2,000 years, you know what I'm saying? So they go on their 2-week vacation, and when they come home, they said it's almost like our chimpanzees had created governments and religions and football and music and, all this culture. And even to them, they're like, holy crap, what happened? We just left. And they said, we don't understand. But now think about if everything is truly, we're all one, which is true. Think about now this race that's evolving in a rate of consciousness that's unheard of in the bigger picture of things, and even in the grand multiverse, that mankind itself is evolving at a rate that's unheard of. When we rise back up into the higher realms, it affects everything. So it really makes sense why we have so much interest from higher realms and higher beings that are watching what transpires right now, because truly it affects everything. But I just wanted to share that whole time differential thing.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, it goes two ways. That one of the reasons that the Anunnaki geneticists were interested in using Homo erectus, or Bigfoot's ancestors' genes, is because Homo erectus is an amazingly empathetic, telepathic creature. And ENKI and Nimma and Thoth wanted the humans to be really empathetic and all feel each other and feel the planet and feel the other creatures.
Right. It's like they realized that the adding this aspect to them creates them evolving onto the next evolutionary level. Otherwise, they're stuck in this kind of like reptilian, primitive, warlike, self and under self, fear and other aspect, and they really wanted to evolve. Like when those are taught discovered the halls of Amenti and the Galzu, and they told him that now that you're one of us, what will be your work? And he said, I've come to help humanity evolve, become conscious like I have become conscious. So he managed to do that while he was both, while he was that entity in
Indeed.
that Anunnaki form. He managed to become conscious. And I imagine, this is my imagination, but where does it come from, is that, of course, since he was Enki's son and one of his favorite children, that he went back and told Enki and his auntie Nima, who they all worked together very closely, about his experience, and that he helped them also become evolved and enlightened, which it seems to be tracked through history. That becomes the story of the Christ of consciousness.
Yeah, and Randy Kramer takes it even further that the Maya that Choate trained as kept as Cuckoo Clan are now a spacefaring race, and they're in the lake, and they're part of our allies on Mars, on the moon. And they are have been rescuing people from this planet and giving them another chance on planets they control.
It's fascinating, everything that's unfolding.
Yeah.
You know what I just learned? Picture, the Pleiadians, which ended up, Anu had a relationship with a Pleiadian, blue avian woman who became Enki's mother, right? But imagine in the past, in their past, they went through the same evolutionary cycles as everyone else, right? From simple cell to simple life form to more advanced life form to everything. And so just because humanity in the past, before Anunnaki came, before they ever set up their mining operations, that the Homo sapien, or the primate that was indigenous on this planet, was a Pleiadian physical vessel that was just at a very early state. I'm saying that the human before even Anunnaki tweaked its genetic code would have evolved eventually in time to what is known now as a wingmaker or Elohim. Now further down the line you get ENKI, who is the first hybrid within the Anunnaki family tree, because his mother was Pleiadian, so he's 50% Pleiadian, 50% Anunnaki, and he's the chief scientist then that is put in charge of actually tweaking the Pleiadian humanoid species that was already here. So now you can start to understand why all these things were put in secretly by ENKI, so humankind would have DNA that would self-activate in the future, and they would not be slaves. Because it's way beyond just him viewing us as family because he tweaked the genome. It's the fact is the primate was Pleiadian in the first place.
Well, we see this seeding that has gone on for many generations, billions and trillions of years before we do the modern human history. So just imagine if we have a bunch of humans that go and settle Mars and Jupiter and Venus, and in the future those people will be known as Martians and Venusians and Jupiterians or whatever they're called, but they originally came from Earth. So they're originally Earthlings. No, they're humans or humanoids. So humanoids are very dominant throughout existence, and also humanoids may not look like we expect them to look because they can have DNA like the blue avians apparently are some kind of bird feature. And when you look at the Anunnaki carvings and other drawings, they show a lot of bird people. Just Google
I got to tell you guys,
these people with bird heads and wings, right?
At this
was
recent,
that a mask, or is that what they look like? Yeah, go ahead. Your turn.
At the Link conference, I met, and Karen knows who he is as well, I met the head Galactic Federation representative from the Blue Avians. I'm talking not channeling. I spent a week with him, and I'm going to be with him. He is going to be my roomie at the next Coming Star Knowledge Conference, and that's this park next month. He is the Blue Avian representative here, and it's absolutely the same Pleiadian symbology, you know. What I wanted to share is the Pleiades is actually named after Ea himself. I never knew that. Let me find this info, because it's really interesting what's unfolding here. Boy, I never realized how much crap I post on Facebook. I'm scrolling through it.
Post a lot of stuff. I wouldn't call it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand. I use Facebook for a weird way for me to catalog information so I'll have it. Like, for instance, when I just went through this experience, and, you know, Chief ended up telling me I work with the 7 Lords of Light and the 7 Lords of Darkness. And he told me he was the only one that sat between both councils and had a seat on each. And I thought 7 Lords, and it hit me that that's in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And it's actually one of the, it's one of the tablets. I think it's Tablet 7 is actually called the 7 Lords. So I went through and began a whole serious now reading of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And I can tell you, it's almost like I'm reading a brand new text now because everything is there. But to put all this into focus, I'm got to be almost here. Yes.
Look at your stuff. Yeah.
Here's the deal. ENKI's mother, who descended from the Pleiadians, and do you know how the name Pleiades came about? According to the Hopi, a Native American tribe whose knowledge of Earth's history is highly esteemed by scholars from across the globe and other Native American Indians, ENKI was called EADA or Ea. What I found out was the word grandfather, which is where Ea is now translated to in their culture, the word grandfather in Lakota ends in La, and the word for grandfather in Dakota ends in Da, and the word for grandfather in Nakota ends in Na. So when they say he was known as EADA, that means to the Dakota, the grandfather, Ea, was known as EADA. But anyhow, it means grandfather, meaning the creator, because it is he who created mankind. His other title was Baal, also rendered B-A-E-L or P-A-A-L, which means Lord Father. That is, Father of mankind. The term Pleiades is an English version of P-A-A-L-E-A-D-A-U-S, Pal-Ea-Deus, Palladian, you know, meaning place of our Lord Father, the Creator. In other words, the Pleiades are named after ENKI.
Oh, that's
mind-blowing?
That's mind-blowing.
You know, Michael, I wonder if you could relate to the idea that it was way earlier, before the Anunnaki came, and probably way before Homo erectus and Bigfoot's ancestry ever got here, in the inner Earth, and that the settlements, when you make planetfall, are usually underground anyway because it's somewhat protected from radiation bombardment and stuff. And so there's a lot of tales that we get in the Urantia books and others about Pleiadians who came to Venus and then to Earth, and then they were in inner Earth. Rama in the Bhagavad Gita was said to come from the Nagas, from inside the Earth. And so I just wondered, and ENKI himself is said to live in inner Earth under Mount Shasta some of the time. I wonder if you could relate to that idea of inner Earth. Yeah.
You know, very well could be, and I've heard that the halls of Mente actually also are a physical location, and it is an inner Earth, and the entrance is through the pyramid, and Thoth talks about this, actually, in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. But imagine that this is a physical area where these light beings who've seen mankind in bondage decided to come here and become human themselves to try to help, and that they are there. You know the whole thing about these beings who are in suspended animation in you know, some picture that they are there resting, and to them, as we said, they experience time differently. So for 2,000 years, it's like they've just been down there sleeping for a couple days to them, and that as they sleep, their dreams become physical incarnations of a human incarnation.
Which
right.
Yeah, mind blowing.
Well, that's the thing. That's what
so maybe they're avatars.
Right. So
yeah. So I was thinking, man, So imagine, I was thinking to myself, if I met my higher self, ENKI, as his native state, 16-foot tall Anunnaki, and I'm his human smoothie suit, so to speak. You know, it'd be weird. Well, is he looking at me through my eyes back at him? Like, I don't know. It's weird.
Well, yeah, and that's probably what's really going on. You know, they have these, I guess,
you know where I heard it is?
From the higher dimensional level can have taller forms because when they're, I don't know, there's something about the gravitational pull, and that's why beings got smaller here on the Earth during the different Earth changes and passing through the mirror, and that's why you see these giant skeletons with skulls that are, 30 feet across, and now, or whatever, however big they are, right? These giant skulls, and now we're doing tiny things, and so there's something that's happened with the Earth that it's like when you see animals living on an island, they get smaller and smaller. The cats here,
they're bombarded by radiation.
Right, the cats here are smaller than mainland cats. And so when you go back to mainland, they go, wow, the cats are big there, and they're just tiny here. So there's that effect that's going on. The Earth produces smaller beings, and I forget why I got off on this. But anyway, back to someone else. Take it away.
Well, A.R. Bordon, I was talking to you about this, Karen, actually, because this head of the Galactic Federation, Blue Avian, Pleiadian representative that I just met and spent a week with, he said that when A.R. Bordon passed away in 2013, he said A.R. Bordon, I didn't know this, but he was James, by the way, Mahu of the Wingmakers. They're two different sides of the same coin, two different personas of the same being. I never knew that. He said that the Pleiadians are so advanced that they have full access to the Akashic records that contains all consciousness. And so when A.R. Bordon passed in 2013, his soul essence then returned to the Akashic and to the One. But now what happened was he said all of a sudden A.R.'s consciousness was accessible and awoke within himself as a young 20-year-old man. And I can tell you that now I've known him, we've become vast close friends, and you know how close A.R. Bordon was to me. I have no idea that somehow he's accessing who A.R.'s energy, I guess, you could look at it that way. I've finished conversations with him that I began with A.R. back in 2013 before he passed away. If you can see where I'm going, that's kind of mind-blowing. What I want to tell you is I talked to him today, and I asked him, I said, it would be cool to get you to go public and start talking, and he said he's willing to do that. So in the very near future, I'd love to do a show and bring him on and get to talk with him, with Karen and I and both of you, and get it'll be fascinating. But he's a dear friend of mine, and Karen knows him as well, and she's seen some of his artwork and actually featuring in your new book, right, Karen?
Yeah, I'm featuring it in a book that I'm editing for someone, and I was just really stunned and amazed at the imagery in that artwork. It really touched me. It really sort of resonated with me. And I've had talks with this guy, too, and seen a picture, and he actually does look a bit like A.R. Bordon as well, like a really young A.R. Bordon.
Yes,
it's really interesting. I'd like to go back to a topic if you're passing the baton, and that I'm making notes like mad. But we talked about intelligence acceleration because I want to sort of explain that a little, just so people get an idea of what that is. It's a situation like I think all humans have the capacity to receive intelligence acceleration. I mean, it's technology, but it's really like a spiritual technology, and they have put some of us through this process, and what I want to just give some quick principles so people can start to access it for themselves. And really the main point of it is we are trained in our culture to be very compartmentalized. This, for instance, our military is very compartmentalized. And I was taught, I did a lot of automatic writing, and we're breaking that word down in different ways. mentally is, coming apart mentally, which, of course, sometimes we say is the definition of insanity, which is what our military intelligence is, kind of a form of insanity, because they use, of course, compartmentalization all the time.
Perfect.
But the idea is that almost everything we engage is like pulled apart. Like we have our university systems, our learning systems, religion, all of it is constantly taking things apart and pushing the pieces away from each other so that someone could be an expert, and revel in themselves being an expert on something. But what we discovered is that we lose the holistic view of something. And so, of course, now we're on that track of holistic medicine, holistic thinking, etc. And I was like kind of studying this intelligence acceleration, and I was actually told by my guides that I would, even before I met AR, that I would go through an acceleration of my intelligence or information or whatever, because I had been interfered with. Since 7 years old, I've been interfered with by mind control programs and an implant that I've told a story about before. And then when I finally realized what this intelligence acceleration really entailed, I just had to laugh because it was just so simple. And it's basically what they said was this compartmentalization is come apart mental allyization. So it's come apart, my friend who's with me, my ally, right? We're going to go way over here and be really studying this thing over here, and we're going to shun these other people, which is done all the time in Body's information where you say, oh, you don't want to listen to that guy. He's crazy. You want to come over here and read my book or listen to my program or be with my people. And when we do that, what we've done is we've now cut off parts of our brain, literally, when we're trying to understand a concept. One big division is between men and women. Oh, you don't want to listen to women. They're flibbertigibbet and emotional. They know what they're talking about. We need to look at this thing, logically and blah, blah, blah. You've heard of these things before. And they told me the opposite, force of that, or the opposing energy of compartmental allyization is integration. And they told me this: intergrace, intergratitude. So the grace is where we have a difference with someone. We say, oh, I really appreciate you, taking that position. It's very challenging to me. And, you literally take your enemy, and you wouldn't necessarily make him your friend. You just have gratitude for that they're, showing you something that you didn't see before, a flaw in your argument or a contrasting position, or just the fact that they decided to look into something that you didn't know, even if they took a different, conclusion to it. And gratitude is the hugely important thing in our intelligence, because gratitude, that attitude of negativity and rejection and judgment shuts us off. It just shuts off the spigot of knowledge when we just, are ungrateful about to other people or whatever it is that we're engaging. Gratitude is literally the number one way to get in touch with people, even if they're kind of big, scary, reptilian, whatever. If you have a sense of gratitude for that communication, and if you're paying attention to many channels, you'll find out that the first thing they do nearly, I noticed this with Bashar, is they thank us humans for allowing that transmission. That's like the first thing they do. So the integration is to say, okay, I don't have to accept everything I hear, but I almost like have an imaginary table where I appreciate this piece of information. I appreciate that piece of information. Once you get them on your mental table that you've got in front of you, suddenly you see where the pieces fit together, and that's what integration is putting the pieces back together and seeing interrelationships that you didn't see before, and looking at things with more of a holistic viewpoint. And that's at least one aspect, is integration, intergrace gratitude about everything you hear. Like I said, don't have to agree with it. Just try to appreciate it in its own context. And when you do, it accelerates your understanding, because you're not, when somebody rejects a concept, most of the time they reject it when they first hear the word. It's right at the start. No, I don't want to hear that. Or they reject the person because that person might be a different religion or political persuasion. When you do that, you've walked off a bunch of understanding that might actually help you understand that. And I can talk about other things that I discovered as well. But this intelligence acceleration is available to every human being. It's something that's not just for some special people. We are able to accelerate our intelligence, accelerate ourselves spiritually. We're able to expand our psychic powers and our knowledge, but we just have to decide that is something we want to do. So I'll just save that for now and pass the baton.
Well, if I could add something to that, because it's about the same subject, but I was told that how the software works is you got beta and theta and different brainwave states. Well, our waking state of consciousness, where we go about our day-to-day existence, is only taking in about approximately 27 bits of information per second. And this is provable because if you take a strobe light, it strobes up until it hits about 27 frames per second, then it turns into a solid white light. Where in the reality is that light is still pulsing. It's just we can't take in more bits of information per second than 27 snapshots, still frames per second. But our unconscious is taking in about 5 million bits of information from its environment, from everything. So it's a huge difference in the input of information from your unconscious to your waking state consciousness. And imagine that they have software that takes off the governor of your waking state and starts to bring up beta and theta states of consciousness to your waking state. And the only problem with this technology, because I was just asked all about this by the Pleiadian Blue Avian. He asked me what I thought about having this technology used upon myself, and I said it ended up in a 2-year shitstorm for myself, because your shadow work lies in the unconscious, and if the unconscious is being flushed up to the waking state of consciousness, you're forced to work through your shadow work in an accelerated rate as well, if you think about it. And as you know, one of the team members, it did not work well with her demeanor whatsoever, because she was brought up in a military background and her mind had been compartmentalized, and it caused her to go dark side, big time. So I just wanted to add that it's a component of this software. We all go through it anyhow, and they say the only way up is through the shadow, and it just makes all that get flushed to the surface.
Well, just, when you transcend your intellect, it's not gone. It's just a lesser part, more comprehensive self, so that you can read energies like you go and give something to your sense. And what you think is your shadow, and a bad part of you, if you find out what you really need to do to protect vulnerability, and I'm going to remember certain experiences until you're ready to assimilate them and to transcend the limits you have now, and to include more of what is a part of self, so that the reach of not self becomes ever smaller as it becomes it all. And you realize that every level of consciousness has its validity, has something to contribute to the wonderful rainbow that we observe.
All right. So let's see, what time we'll do a time check here. Kind of went into this timeless space.
We did the time warp today.
I did. Who was supposed to call in? I think it might be John. Hold on, let me see if this is John. Area code 216. Who do we have here? Hi, is it someone wanting to make a comment or ask a question? All right, it might just be a lurker, somebody listening, so I won't, I'm going to take you off of speaker. But whoever you are, thank you for joining us. All right, so we have... I
want to know what the age of Aquarius when it's full moon is going to be like. What do you think it's going to be like?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding you, Sasha. Might need to get closer to the microphone or something. Could you repeat the question?
Imagine that the age of Aquarius is here, and we have some kind of planetary unity and mutual compassion for one another. What would life be like in the full-bloomed age of Aquarius? What do you think?
Well,
can you hear me?
It's I'm having a hard time understanding them, but I got the gist of the question. And when I met the Anunnaki, they told me their whole succession of kingship and how they relate to humanity is based on the precessional cycle, and why it was so important of this transition from the age of Pisces into this prophesied golden age of the age of Aquarius. And that they told me that this experiment to accelerate human conscious evolution by making us experience our own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, both light and dark thought forms, it would end the actual second that we enter the age of Aquarius. That whether it would be that we rose to the occasion or we didn't do our shadow work and we self-imploded. And they said that the actual entry into the age of Aquarius was February 14th, 2009. And as I said, they all agreed that we have earned the right to be treated as equals. And now it is truly the end of the age just happened because of what happened last month at the halls of Amenti and going through it, that we are truly now absolutely seeing the crumbling of our old reality with what's happening in government, with, say, Britain seceding from the EU, with the religious aspects, with them, the church saying Mary Magdalene was the first apostle, not a whore. In the economic systems, we're seeing the crumbling of the old because there are systems of galactic intelligence waiting in the wings where humanity will be freed. And everything that's been prophesied about this age of Aquarius, we're going to see it unfold probably within the next 4 months. I mean, we just got started with what's going on in the world right now. So the age of Aquarius, by the way, I don't know if the listeners know, but Aquarius is the man holding a bucket of water, right? And back in Sumeria, ENKI was always depicted as either having water erupting from his shoulders, or he would be carrying pitchers or buckets of water. ENKI is Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius is really the age of ENKI, and I am ENKI.
Right.
And so here we are.
One of the interesting stories that the Zechariah translated was that first Amala was escaping in a nuclear-armed rocket ship from the Nibiru, blasted his way through the asteroids with nuclear weapons, and he refused to use nukes in space because that damaged the portals, and instead he used water cannons. He used all the water that was in his rocket ship to blast the asteroids out of the way. The ships started overheating. They landed on Mars. It was a way to build their water system. But that's one of the reasons he depicted with water all around, and then he splashed down and they swamped it with a box around. But initially, it's that use of water cannons to get through space that gave depiction of sorts.
You know what's interesting, about Aquarius and ENKI being the water bearer, right? I totally understand the whole water bearer thing now, more so than ever, because that was one of the things that happened during this halls of Amenti is, due to the Sundance, the Illuminati mind control is brainwashing them to never pray for rain, whereas the light side is saying if one person is compassionate enough to pray for rain for those dancers, they will gain the support of the Team Good Cop. And it was truly, I prayed for rain on the end of the second night of the Sundance. That morning, I seen the storm coming in. There was no storm even on this forecast. And way off, is 5:30 in the morning, and I was out on the road next to this location, and I could see the storm coming in that was had the most lightning in it. It was so active, and I thought, you know what, about 20 minutes, if it doesn't dissipate, it's going to come right over us. And I thought, wouldn't that be great? But I was really tired, so I went to bed in the tent. Well, sure enough, about 6 o'clock in the morning, the storm pulled right over the camp and unleashed the most beautiful rain, the waterfalls. And the rules too were like you couldn't take a shower or you couldn't bathe during Sundance. And I'm like, damn it, I need a shower. I like being clean, and it was really bothering me. So I'm like, hell with it. I'm going to go out and dance in the rain. And I did. It was so beautiful because it was so hot. The previous 2 days, and that's why I prayed for rain for the dancers, because it was so hot those days. I was trying to find shade just to cool off a little bit, and here they are dancing out in the hot sun with no water, no food for 4 days. I pray for rain like them, like I can't even tell you. So when I got out and danced around in it, I'm telling you, it was the most divine, beautiful feeling rain I've ever felt on my skin. I took my shirt off, and I just played in it like I was a kid. Well, the next day, it took the heat off the whole day. It was almost like we were on a tropical island, and it left this mist in the air that cooled off everything. And day 3 was just glorious. Even all the dancers were talking about it, like, wow, this is beautiful, you know. But like I said, they had been told never to pray for rain. So the chief comes out, and he goes to each sun dancer. He's like, did you pray for rain? He's like, no, I didn't do it. You know, go to the next dancer. Hey, did you pray for rain? No, I didn't do it. Well, when he got to the circle and he was kind of facing me, I finally, like, I heard what he was saying and what he was asking him, and I said, I prayed for rain. I said, wasn't it glorious? I was out dancing in it. Did you? You know, I didn't know you weren't supposed, in their mind, they weren't supposed to pray for rain. I was all like, oh, it was kick-ass. I did it, you know. But that's when Chief looked at me. He said, Michael did it. And that's when he took me behind the curtain and said, you've passed both tests. You've showed compassion.
Wow.
But now imagine being the water bearer and the significance of that's how I got through the test was I brought rain. And this is weird too, but, you know, on day 2, who I now know is one of the Dark Lords came to me and said, I had a dream and you were involved in the dream. And once a dream comes true at Sundance, he said that there was a man in the dream that was physically there. And he was all excited. He goes, because now tomorrow I get to reenact that dream and for real and create like a Shakespearean play that would be reenacted tomorrow, and it had everything to do with me. And so what happened was the next day, I didn't know this, but they had told my friend who had decided to dance for the first time, they told him to fake passing out. Because what I learned is this dark character had a dream that in it my friend passed out and died from sun dancing, and I entered the circle to save him. And free will, right? If you enter even to help someone, you've given your will over to something else, and I was crucified when I entered the circle. So now I didn't know any of this. All I know is my friend has passed out, and he's on the ground, and 10 minutes had passed, and I was having a breakdown. I was like, oh, my God, like no one's helping him. You know, they were fanning him, trying to cool him off. But after 10 minutes, they took him and drug him to the tree and tied him to the tree. At this point, I flipped out. I was crying. I was broken down. I stood up and said, I will shut this fucking thing down, excuse my language. And I was heading into the circle. One of the grandmothers almost tackled me and said, here, drink for him. And she handed me a big glass of water with a lemon in it. And I understood it. It was like LERM. It was like MPO, you know. I've already been trained in these things anyhow by AR. So I got it. If anyone on this planet has ever drank water for another human being, I did. And after I finished the first glass, I was kind of got myself composed, and she handed me another glass and said, here, drink this for him as well. And I drank that second glass and sent it to him mentally. And I had composed myself. After this, I went back up, and here he was back on his feet, full of energy and dancing around like his lunatic self. Here I didn't know they told him to fake falling. It almost, the ploy almost worked, and I almost did enter the circle, and it would have been horrible. But
wow.
It was the grandmother offering me the water and saying, drink for him. So I just want to share why, if anyone ever said, hey, are you the water bearer? I can, down in my deep soul, say, yes, I am.
Wow. Amazing story.
Yeah.
So the soul Sundance, why wouldn't they pray for rain? That's kind of weird.
Because, as I said, if you got good cop and bad cop, and they're going to repackage this for different audiences, really it's about, on one side, bad cop has a circle that if you enter it in your own free will, you've given yourself over to them in guise of spirit. People think that if they inflict self-sacrifice on themselves. Like some Christians do this, right, where they flog themselves on their back and cut themselves because they think that they're going to gain some type of spiritual enlightenment or something, which never comes, by the way. You know, people who Sundance, they will tell you they do have divine experiences, and it is because, you know what, sun gazing is very powerful, and you will have connection with Source. You don't need to do it all day. At sunrise and sunset is best, and you don't really have to. And the same thing with fasting. As we said, fasting will rejuvenate your physical body. But the thing is, none of the self-inflicted suffering is needed whatsoever. So, but as Chief said, he said, through free will up until this point, both sides have to be offered from good and bad cop. So they're trying to get people to, through advanced Illuminati mind control, by the way, where it's almost like you've drank a Kool-Aid at the Jim Jones's place, you know, and the whole thing is forming a communal mindset to follow the crowd up the crooked stairs. And, you know, everyone was coming up to me and going, hey, you going to Sundance? Hey, you Sundancing? Hey, you going to dance this time? You dancing next year? I'd get done with one person and the next person would come up. It was part of the programming. Well, that faction is who had put in the programming to never pray for rain. Whereas, because they knew it was the part of the criteria for that packaging of the Halls of Amente sovereign integral experience, that if someone did pray for rain, they would gain the support of the 7 Lords of Light. So, of course, they didn't want that because they didn't want the rain to end, right? So that's pretty much, that's why that they never prayed for rain, is they were told that to gain their enlightenment, they needed to be searing and have the sun as hot as possible, and that's what they're, because not only were they dancing all day, but then at night they'd be taken into a super hot Native American Indian sweat lodge, being controlled by dark spirit. I can imagine how hot it was.
Did people over the years, people don't ever dead? I mean, that just seems like...
What's that?
You know, have people just dropped over dead at these Sundances?
I'm sure, because you got to realize that not until this is one of the first Sundances ever that they let an insider in, and I actually think that's why I got through some of the mind programming, because I'm really not of that culture. I only found out about my Native Indian culture, and I'll tell you what, I met so many Native American Indians who, because of the Europeans coming here and ripping their families apart, I didn't find out. It was not until 1978 that Jimmy Carter put in the Freedom of Religion Act, and up until 1978, even if they spoke in their ancient language, they would be ripped out of their families and put in jail for 30 years. And I talked to people who their mothers and fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers were ripped from their families, and some of them were children who were taken away. And so these people have seen demons for real that us Westerners can't even imagine because of what they've went through. And it's almost like the 7 Dark Lords just had a heyday with their culture.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah, and that's what our...
Not no more, though. It's done and over with. I'm so excited that it's done.
We are, too. Okay. Karen, we're on our final... we've got to be on the final few minutes. Yes. Karen, what would you like to add before we wrap it up?
More of making a comment, because it's interesting going from this sun dance that they said they're going to turn to a moon dance, and I think that's really interesting. I've been totally immersed.
That was my idea, by the way.
Oh, good for you. Well, it's interesting because I've been immersed in this work with Ken Johnston and our original Apollo missions, and I just had an entire education where, you know, what kind of generally comes across to me is we had a paternalistic military, you know, right brain, left brain, whatever it is, you know, view of the moon. Here it is. It's science. It's done. It's getting in capsules and going out there and exploring it. And our results were very put in, a hierarchical format of scientists who study this and everything, and finding out they're absolutely blisteringly wrong because the images themselves were manipulated. There were forces within NASA already beginning to debunk a lot of the, basically my basic theories, a lot of theories of what happened during the Apollo era, but my main theory is that they found stuff that was really uncomfortable for them to explain, so they followed the Brookings report and the Robertson panel and all these things that said that we weren't ready to handle the truth, and, basically began a manipulation, not unlike Roswell. But so this manipulation is stayed in place for many, many decades. And working with Ken, seeing first and second generation, photos from the Apollo era, I'm finding out there are ancient structures. There's modern structures on the moon, and I talked about it in a conference we did a couple of weeks ago. So my whole, paradigm about what is pertaining to the moon is pretty thrown open, along with the fact that other people have had, visitations and communication with aliens that are up there. There's a lot more to that story, and we forgot about what the moon has been in our folklore, which, our folklore, we say, oh, that's myth or that's folklore. Those were the experiences of our ancestors that we need to respect, because they were obviously witnessing something, and they, put it in folklore terms, and, it's dismissed as mythology because it's uncomfortable for religion or it's uncomfortable for science. And, philosophically, emotionally, spiritually, we need to go back to the stories of the moon, to go back to the truth about the moon that was discovered, and they hid it from us, and it's coming out. It's like an avalanche of information coming out from people who witnessed things being scribbled out of photos, as well as original photos that absolutely show the difference between what we see online and what, in the catalogs of NASA and what used to be visualized. So we have this avalanche of information coming out, right on time, I think, as a part of disclosure, as a part of the discovery of who we are. Then from that, I looked through Sasha's material and Sitchin's material and found out that there was a moon base, that Marduk and ENKI were there, that Nanar, one of the other characters in the story, was there. And so we have, whole chapters of our history that is coming to light from before. It is a time to reverence the moon. We have most of the scientific community and NASA saying, hey, let's go to Mars. And I'm one of these people like, hey, we're not ready to go to Mars. We haven't even got a space colony on Earth unless they're telling us that there is not one when there is one. So we have, that reverence to turn to the moon, and the story that you're talking about really resonates with me because of what I've been looking at is that we, again, that gratitude and appreciation, our planetary bodies are intelligences all their own. Our Earth is a spirit, is an intelligence, is a being. Our moon is also. The stars were called the heavenly host, and they're hosting life forms, and we're one of those life forms, and we need to respect that. Our ancient people knew that. And it's time for us to catch up and start giving some respect, first and foremost, to our hostess with the mostess, and that's the planet we're on. And that's how you learn. That's how you get in contact, and you learn and you feel. And this is the beginning of the knowledge that we could be talking about. We'll be talking about in this next age that's coming. So I'll pass the baton.
All right. Sash, final words?
It's all perfect. You couldn't be any other way.
Your mic's on the floor. Mic's on the floor. Catch your...
Oh, my mic's on the floor.
Mic's on the floor.
It's all perfect. You couldn't be any other way. That's it.
Okay, and my final words is I certainly hope that we can get the moon out of the way. I wouldn't like to see her sacrifice her life and all that.
Well, I can tell you, the king, Chief already said, it's total agreement that prayer can change the outcome of anything. And he gave me some very specific examples that there was volcanoes that were going to go off in the 1990s, and it's going to be very detrimental to humanity. And they got in contact with Spirit, the chiefs did, and Spirit came to them during ceremony and said, we can create and we can stop. What could we do to help? And they told them that those volcanoes would not be good for humanity, and they never went off. So he told me, absolutely, if we come together as a species and we ask to have this event averted and show our love and give the moon our mental energy and attention, letting it know how much we appreciate it, we can change the outcome. And I absolutely believe that, and that's why we're going to move into this new age of the moon dance. For the next 20 years, we're going to be dancing. That's going to be our jobs.
That's going to be our job, is dancing.
What's the date of the moon dance?
Oh, and we have somebody returning our cat. Our cat got out while we were doing the show. Go get the cat. Tell him we got 5 minutes and we'll come get him in 5. Okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah, he wants to know, when are you going to do the first moon dance?
I am working right now on bringing the elders to Eastlake, Ohio to announce it as the first location of the mound builders was Eastlake, Ohio, and it's being revealed that it's the Lost Nation, Lost Tribe of Israel, as well, and and where they went. But during this event that's going to be here in 2017, I think that will be the first moon dance as well. But there's 2 Star Knowledge conferences coming up, one in a month on 13th, 14th, and 15th in Estes Park, Colorado at it's called the Dow House. It's he's like a guru kind of guy from, I think it's China. But anyhow, a lot of these things are going to be announced and what's happening in the transition from the Sundance, because this is historic in itself, because Sundances have been going on forever, And, the chief has already said that, the news is the Sundance is going to be transforming into something even more incredible, which is the moon dance. By the way, the whole thing with eating apples, if you remember, Karen, remember A.R. Bordon's most favorite saying? It was, "How about them apples?" Well, when he passed away, the first thing I did is I went to the platform, and he did show up, and his first words to me after he had passed away was, "How about them apples?" But now,
that's funny.
I was just asked if I understood the synchronicity between what he said and the moon dance, and I'm like, what? And he said, "How about them apples?"
Well,
you're right.
They better not be GMO apples. I get that.
No more GMO apples. So
even if it is, just put your hands around it and give it your blessing, and you can heal it.
Love and appreciation. You're right.
Yeah.
Grace and gratitude.
Yeah, it's interesting. The purpose of genetic manipulation in ENKI's day was diversification. And the purpose of genetic manipulation by Monsanto is having one crop for everybody and charging them for it.
Wow. Well, I'm
monoculture
here about the Star Knowledge Gathering or Conference, and where do people? Is there a website?
Yes, people can go to StarKnowledgeEnterprises.com, and you'll see, and actually they got a great special going on that if you book a room at the Dow House, you actually get 2 days entry into the conference for free, which is a fantastic opportunity. But also there's the 20th anniversary Star Knowledge coming up in 11/11 on November. By the way, on the way to this last thing, the Sundance, we drove for about 13 hours, and we had an arrival time on our GPS for 11:11. But we got lost, and our arrival time became 1:11. And then we decided, why go there and try to set up a tent at 1 o'clock in the morning? Let's just get a hotel. So when we got to the hotel, they put us in room 111. Then the next morning when we got back on the freeway, we realized the road that we had to take off of the freeway to go to this event was exit 111.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay. What's the significance of that to you? Is that
11:11 is like a cosmic wink,
Right.
It's
cosmic thing, right.
Cosmic synchronicity wink. But the point is, on 11/11 in November is the Miami 20th anniversary Star Knowledge Conference, which is going to be huge. So those are the 2 Star Knowledge events. And people that don't know what Star Knowledge is, it's the Native American Indian elders have got permission from Spirit to start releasing all the information from thousands of years of contact with star beings. And that's what's happening at these Star Knowledge conferences. So it's going right to the source, and you get to hear it right from the elders themselves. And so it's a great event for truth seekers.
So there you are, Chief Golden Eagle, Ancient Indian Star, Clifford Mahoney, Michael Lee Hill, and many other elders and teachers and authors, August 12th, 13th, 14th in Estes Park, Colorado. And then you have another one in November in Miami, Florida.
Yep.
Are you going to that one as well?
Yeah, you know what's mind-blowing is since they've given me the designation Grandfather Rainbow. That's my Indian name, by the way. Grandfather Rainbow. I'm like, wow, that's a crazy name. It sounds like a Smurf name, don't it? It's like the Smurf grandfather. But anyhow, Grandfather Rainbow. Make a long story short, I've been brought in as a keynote speaker now. Like me and Laura Eisenhower are the keynote speakers at the Estes Park event, and I will be going to the Miami one. I don't know if that says it doesn't even matter, but I feel honored that they brought me in as a keynote speaker, and I'm really working hand in hand with Chief Golden Light Eagle on all of this and releasing. You know, it's mind blowing that the East Lake Mound Builders they've become the Sioux tribe of Indians. I never knew that. So it makes perfect sense who Chief Golden Light Eagle truly is in a bigger scheme of things, because he's just not a Native American Indian chief, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. Well,
I think he may be my brother. We'll just leave it at that.
He may be your brother?
Yeah.
Did your dad get around?
Well, I'll tell you, in the Native American Indian mythology, they said that once an initiate came across this council of wizards and shamans, which a different way of looking at what we just said, that the person that sat in the middle and had a seat in both councils was Yahweh. Now you see?
Makes sense.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
And do we got time for like 1 minute?
Yes, we do. Go for it.
One of the grandmothers showed me that she wiped her hand over a windshield. She said, I want to give you a history of how the mound builders intertwined into the Sioux, into the Lakota, Dakota. And she made a map of the United States appear on the inside of her windshield, like Star Wars, holographic, whole, red, computerized map of the United States, right on the inside of her windshield as she wiped her hand over it. And she looked at me and said, I know you can see it. Figure that crap out.
Wow.
And proceeded for the next 15 minutes to give me a history lesson on how the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota, the Sioux tribes, intermingled into the United States and where they went. And I learned a lot during that time. She thought it was funny, though. I asked her if there was any kind of Native American Indian history for dummies book. I guess it doesn't exist.
How about a series of interviews that you do with her?
You know what? I would love to do an interview with Chief Golden Light Eagle, and anyone, like I said, the Blue Avian rep is ready and raring to start doing some interviews, and
bring him over.
Maybe even maybe I can get Chief before the Estes Park to come on and do an interview with him and talk about what the Star Knowledge Conference is and all of this.
We'd love that.
Oh, yeah, we'd love that.
Definitely. We'll help out however we can.
I'm looking at your lineup here, and there's just tons of speakers. So what we do is we love to support these conferences at Aquarian Radio. So if you can just maybe send a letter to the organizer, tell them that just contact me, and between Sasha, Karen, and John and I, we will fit a lot of these people in between now and the conference to help.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Oh, wow, I'll let them know. That's great. You know what? I will contact Chief myself, and you contact them, and I'll send you a link to the woman who is like the orchestrator, organizer of these events, and I'll get you her contact info as well. That would be great. They'll really appreciate it. Perfect.
So we love to support conferences, and it also helps us get to know all these people on a level that we couldn't get to know them otherwise. Because can't always. Well,
I can tell you, the Blue Avian Pleiadian rep that I met is he's one of the speakers, and his name is Sheldon Bird. You can see him on there.
I'm looking at him right now. There he is. He seems like a
Doesn't he look like A.R. Bordon?
He does. He
Yeah.
looks like a younger. Well, they say that when the soul essence or the spirit is coming in through physical form, and that overlays the existing physical form, and then the person starts looking like, their other emanations or incarnations, or however you want to call it. Yes, so that happens. Oh, I think we're running out of time. Let's see. Okay. Final. Well, let's see. Karen, one more time, and then we're gonna end it because we have like 4 minutes. Karen, did you have something to say?
Yes. So this is something I got to download today, and I'm going to put it in really quick terms. And the basic idea is that the gold is coming back into use for humanity. And, so if you look at it from the writings about it, it's like we're going to the gold standard, which was, what we value. We value gold because we were told to value gold. We were told by our ancestors that gold was valuable. Because, otherwise, why would we think it was? It wasn't food. You couldn't eat it, right? But the gold has another part to it, and that is this monatomic part to it. If those of you who read the Dune series, it's the spice. When we receive it in that way, it has, this is a
Did we just lose her? That's interesting. Well, let's finish it. Monatomic gold is very good for humanity, and it'll make our DNA fire on all cylinders. And the gold being released to humanity could actually produce monatomic gold for all of humanity's use. See, they can't block every single one of us.
No, they can't. You guys are like a five-team
tag team,
baseball or football team, tag team. I'll finish the thought. Josh,
yeah.
I just think we've been really, really privileged to have Michael here. You are, in my judgment, the sovereign integral, the embodiment of ENKI in this modern times. And I hope this time that we don't shaft our grand tutor.
Shafting the grand tutors. Well, no, you didn't crawl from the cross, so I don't think it's going to happen. You passed it, right? You didn't go into
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Onward and to better things, right?
Right.
Yes. So bring in some more people. We'll interview them. Come back anytime. If you have any people you want to be on with, we'd love to have you back. We've got plenty of bears, and we really love it when you join us. Karen, I hope you're listening. We'll get you on again next week. And Sasha, thanks for coming.
Harmony and understanding, sympathy and love abound.
Yep. And blessings.
Fantastic show.
Yes, another fantastic show. Okay. Aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com.
Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.